The alien jungle was alive with strange sounds. Twisting vines hung like snakes, and glowing plants cast eerie lights over the forest floor. Leora ran as fast as her small legs could carry her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and sweat dripped from her forehead. She could hear the beasts behind her, deep growls, snapping jaws, and the heavy thud of their claws hitting the ground. Her species was not made for fighting, only hiding. She had tried to escape, but the jungle seemed endless, and the beasts were faster, stronger, and relentless. A low growl sounded close behind, and Leora stumbled over a root. She fell hard, scraping her knees and hands against the rough ground. Pain shot through her, but she had no time to cry. The beasts were almost upon her. Two massive creatures, covered in scales and spines, towered over her. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light, and their long, sharp teeth glistened. One lunged at her. She screamed and rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its snapping jaws. The air smelled of damp earth and fear. Just as she scrambled to get back on her feet, a shadow moved in front of the creatures. A tall figure stood between her and the predators, calm and unafraid. Leora froze, unsure if this new presence was friend or foe. The figure raised a small device in his hands and pressed a button. A bright flash and a loud sound echoed through the jungle. The beasts recoiled, startled, their focus momentarily broken. The human, Captain Ryland, did not wait. He ran toward a cluster of vines, pulling them down to create a barrier. With quick movements he set up a trap using sticks and sharp rocks, forcing the beast to slow down. Leora watched in awe. He moved with confidence and purpose, his eyes scanning every angle, every shadow. It was unlike anything she had seen. No alien she knew would dare stand against the beasts alone. One of the creatures roared and charged at them. Ryland grabbed a vine and swung it like a whip, tangling the beast's legs. It crashed into the ground, thrashing and snarling. Leora's fear mixed with disbelief. This human, small compared to the monsters, was holding his own. He worked quickly, using a combination of traps, clever movement, and even his voice to confuse the beasts. Leora felt hope rising for the first time since she had run from the jungle. Ryland turned to her. "Stay close," he said, his voice calm but firm. She nodded, still trembling. As they moved together he explained a simple plan. "I will lead them this way and you follow behind. Stay quiet and don't run unless I say." She could barely understand his words fully, but she trusted the tone, the way he carried himself. He was different from anyone she had met, strong in mind, not just body. The jungle seemed to fight them at every step. Giant roots twisted across the path, and glowing insects buzzed around their heads. A sudden screech made them both stop. A third beast had appeared, smaller but faster, darting between trees. Leora froze, and it lunged at her from behind. Without thinking, Ryland grabbed her arm and pulled her into a low trench, shielding her with his body. The creature slammed into the ground where she had been, snarling in frustration. Leora gasped for air, her small chest heaving. She looked up at him with wide eyes. "You okay?" he asked, brushing leaves from her hair. She nodded, unable to speak. His presence was steady, grounding. For the first time she realized that maybe she could survive this nightmare. She had never met a human before and she did not know if she could trust them fully, but something about him made her feel safe. The beasts recovered quickly, circling them once more. Ryland's mind worked faster than the creature's instincts. He spotted a narrow cliff nearby, a drop that was risky but possible to navigate. He pointed to it. "We go over there. Follow me and be careful." Leora nodded and held his hand. Together they sprinted toward the cliff, jumping over roots and dodging the creature's claws. One of the beasts tried to grab her tail, but Ryland knocked it away with a strong push. The jungle was chaotic around them, but he never faltered. At the cliff edge, Ryland paused, looking down. "Jump on 3, he said. Leora's heart stopped. She had never jumped from such a height. She looked at him, fear in her eyes. He smiled slightly, reassuring her. "I've got you." 1, 3, he counted, and they leaped together. Leora screamed, then felt the wind rushing past. When they landed, she stumbled but did not fall. Ryland caught her immediately, steadying her. The beasts growled from above, unable to follow. Leora looked up, amazed. He had saved her, not with brute force alone, but with thinking, courage, and careful planning. For the first time she saw humans not as weak or fragile, but as beings capable of incredible bravery. She realized something new. Strength was not only in size or claws, but in the mind, in the courage to face fear, and in the willingness to protect others even at great risk. She looked at him, and a spark of hope lit in her heart. Ryland extended his hand to help her stand fully. "We're not safe yet," he said, his voice steady. "But we will get through this." Leora took his hand, gripping it tightly. Together they moved deeper into the safer parts of the jungle, each step bringing her closer to trust, and closer to understanding the humans' remarkable courage. For the first time since the hunt began, Leora felt that maybe she could survive. Maybe, with him, she could even escape the jungle alive. The monsters were still out there, but now she was not alone. She had someone who would step forward when she could not. Someone who would fight not because he had to, but because he chose to. And that made all the difference. Leora followed Rylan through the dense jungle, still trembling from the close encounter with the beasts. Her small hands clutched his sleeve as she tried to keep up. The human moved steadily, confident in every step, as if he knew the forest like it was his own world. Leora's heart slowly calmed. She could feel his calm energy, and it made her realize that maybe she could survive this nightmare if she stayed close to him. The sunlight barely broke through the thick canopy above, painting the ground with soft green light. Strange plants brushed against them as they walked, and Leora noticed small glowing insects flitting around. She had seen these creatures before, but now, with Rylan beside her, they seemed less frightening. The human glanced around, scanning their surroundings with sharp eyes. Leora noticed how carefully he moved, avoiding roots and keeping to paths that were safer. It amazed her how humans could be so alert and smart in dangerous places. "Are you hurt?" Rylan asked, glancing down at her. His voice was calm, not rushed, as if he wanted her to feel safe. Leora shook her head. She had a few scratches, but nothing serious. She realized that his presence made the pain feel smaller, less frightening. I think I'm okay," she whispered. He nodded and offered her a small water container from his pack. Leora drank carefully, feeling the cool liquid slide down her throat. She had never seen a human carry water like this before, and she was curious about his ways. As they walked, Leora started to ask questions, her voice soft but steady. "Why are you helping me? Humans don't usually come here." Rylan looked at her, his eyes gentle. "I help when I can," he said simply. "Because it's the right thing to do. Not all creatures can survive alone, and you shouldn't have to." Leora was surprised. No alien had ever spoken like that to her. Most species only thought of themselves, but this human cared about her life, even though they barely knew each other. The jungle grew darker as the day passed, and strange noises surrounded them. Leora froze at every rustle of leaves. A branch snapped somewhere behind them and she jumped, gripping Rylan's arm tightly. He smiled slightly. "It's okay," he said. "Not every sound is danger. Some things are just curious." She blinked, unsure what he meant, but she felt comforted. His calmness gave her courage. She realized humans were different from the species she had known. They were brave not because they had no fear but because they could control it. After some time they reached a small clearing. Leora collapsed onto the soft grass, exhausted from running and hiding. Rylan knelt beside her, checking her carefully. "We need to rest a little," he said. "The jungle is safer in small bursts, but we can't stop for too long." She nodded, leaning back against a tree. She watched him set up a small protective barrier with sticks and vines. Even while resting, he stayed alert. Leora felt amazed. Humans seemed to think of everything, safety, comfort, survival, all at once. She wished her species could learn such clever ways. "Why do you do this?" she asked after a while. "Why risk yourself for someone you don't know?" Rylan paused, looking thoughtful. "Because someone helped me once," he said quietly. "And because it matters that we protect each other. It's not about strength alone. It's about choice." Leora thought about this. She had never understood such words. Her people fought only to survive or to gain power. But this human chose to help her, not for reward, not for survival alone, but because it was right. That idea surprised her. It felt hopeful. As they continued, Leora began to show him parts of the jungle she knew well. She pointed out hidden paths, small pools of water, and places where the dangerous beasts rarely went. Rylan listened carefully, asking questions and remembering every detail. Leora noticed he was learning quickly, not just following but understanding. She realized humans could adapt, think fast, and even learn from smaller, weaker beings. For the first time she felt they could really work together. Night began to fall and the jungle changed. The glowing insects lit small paths and strange sounds echoed through the trees. Leora shivered as the shadows grew longer. Rylan noticed and handed her a small blanket from his pack. "Keep warm," he said. She wrapped it around her shoulders and smiled faintly. For the first time she felt safe without fear overpowering her. The human had created safety in the middle of danger. She could feel trust forming in her chest, a fragile, new feeling. Suddenly, a noise came from the treeline. A small predator, smaller than the beast they had escaped before, crept closer. Leora froze, but Rylan stepped in front of her. He didn't panic or yell. He simply moved slowly, blocking the creature's path with a stick. The predator hissed but backed off. Leora watched, amazed. Humans didn't need brute strength to survive. They used their minds, strategy, and courage. She realized how different they were, and she felt admiration mixed with a growing sense of hope. By the time they reached a safer part of the jungle, Leora felt changed. She no longer saw Rylan as just a stranger. He was her protector, a guide, and someone who had shown her a new way to see the world. She felt a bond forming, fragile but strong, built on trust and courage. She realized humans were special, not just because of strength but because of their hearts and minds. As they settled for the night, Leora leaned against a tree, watching the human arrange small traps and lights to keep them safe. She felt a quiet hope inside her. The jungle was still dangerous, but with him she could face it. For the first time she believed survival was possible, not just through hiding but through courage, trust, and the unexpected friendship between two very different beings. And as she drifted toward sleep, she thought about the human's simple words, "It's about choice." She realized that, in a universe full of dangers, the right choice could mean the difference between life and death. And this human had chosen to protect her. The jungle seemed quieter now, but Leora knew it was only a trick. Shadows moved between the trees, and the faint rustle of leaves reminded her that danger was never far. Rylan moved ahead with careful steps, scanning the forest for any signs of movement. Leora tried to keep up, her small legs tired from running and climbing, but she felt safer with him nearby. Every time she looked at him, she was amazed by his calm focus. He seemed to notice things she would never see, the faint tracks of animals, broken branches, and even the smell of predators in the air. "See that?" Rylan whispered, pointing to a set of large claw marks on a tree. Leora leaned closer. Those are from the big beasts?" she asked, her voice trembling. He nodded. "Yes. They hunt in packs, smarter than most creatures. But they have patterns. Watch and you'll see." Leora watched as Rylan studied the marks, then listened to the rustling in the distance. He tilted his head, almost like he was hearing a conversation the forest was having. She realized humans could pay attention to small details in ways she could not. As they moved deeper, Leora noticed strange glowing mushrooms along their path. Some emitted a soft blue light, and others pulsed faintly like tiny hearts. Rylan paused and crouched down to examine them. "These are markers," he said quietly. "The big predators avoid these areas. Something about the smell or the energy keeps them away." Leora's eyes widened. You can figure that out?" He shrugged. "Humans learn from the world. We watch, we test, and we remember." She realized how much humans could do with only their minds and a careful eye. Suddenly, a faint growl echoed through the trees. Leora froze, but Rylan remained calm. "It's one of the smaller hunters," he said softly. "We need to move carefully." He took her hand and led her along a hidden path, barely visible under thick vines. Leora followed silently, impressed by his skill. She had never known a being so small and yet so smart could make the jungle seem less dangerous. The path led them to a small clearing and Leora gasped. In the middle, a giant predator crouched, its eyes glowing in the dim light. But it was not attacking. It seemed curious, almost cautious. Rylan gestured for Leora to stay behind him. He slowly stepped forward, speaking in a low voice, almost like he was communicating with the creature. Leora watched, amazed, as the beast hesitated, then backed away slightly. Humans could do things she had never imagined, not just fight but think their way through danger. Leora felt a strange excitement. She had always thought the jungle was only about strength and speed, but Rylan showed her it could also be about thinking and strategy. She started noticing patterns she had never seen before. The way the leaves rustled when the predators moved, the way shadows shifted as they walked, even the faint smell changes that signaled danger. She realized she could learn from him just by watching. As they moved on, Rylan spoke quietly. "This jungle has secrets," he said. "Not everything is as it seems. Some creatures are clever, some are dangerous, and some are just testing you." Leora looked at him. "Testing me?" He nodded. "Yes. The jungle teaches those who pay attention. You've already learned a lot just by staying alive and watching." She thought about this. Perhaps humans and aliens could learn from each other. She had survived because she was careful, and he had survived because he was clever. Together they were stronger. Night began to fall, and the jungle became even more mysterious. The glowing mushrooms lit their way, casting moving shadows across the trees. Leora's fear returned, but Rylan stayed close, his hand brushing hers occasionally to reassure her. "See that path?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "Good. That path leads to safer ground, but it's narrow. We must go slowly." She followed him, careful to mimic his steps, and for the first time she felt like she understood his thinking. A sudden screech pierced the night. A pack of smaller predators appeared, surrounding them. Leora froze, but Rylan moved calmly. He didn't panic or shout. Instead, he used sticks and stones to make noise and confuse the creatures, then led Leora along a hidden side path. She followed without hesitation, amazed at his quick thinking. Every step showed her that humans did not rely on brute force. They relied on brains, courage, and adaptability. At the end of the path they reached a small stream. Leora knelt to drink, her hands shaking slightly, but Rylan stayed alert, scanning the forest. "Good," he said. "This is a safe place to rest for now." She looked around and realized the jungle seemed less threatening with him here. She started to trust him completely, feeling that he could guide her safely through even the deadliest parts. As they sat by the stream, Leora began talking quietly about her world, her family, and the dangers she had faced. Rylan listened patiently, asking questions and nodding. She noticed how different he was from anyone she had known. Humans seemed to care about understanding others, not just surviving. His patience, his calmness, and his willingness to protect her made her feel safe in a way she had never imagined. The night passed quietly, the jungle alive with soft sounds and glowing lights. Leora slept near Rylan, still in awe of his bravery and intelligence. She realized that survival was not only about strength, it was about courage, observation, and trust. She had seen the jungle in a new way now, and she knew she could rely on him. The human had not only saved her life but also taught her something more valuable: how to see the world clearly even in the darkest places. When the first light of dawn touched the jungle, Leora opened her eyes. Rylan was already scanning the surroundings, alert as always. She smiled faintly. She trusted him now, not just as a protector but as a guide, a friend, and a teacher. The jungle still held secrets and dangers, but together they could face anything. For the first time she felt hope, and it was because of the human who had stepped into her life and shown her a new way to survive. The jungle had grown darker and more menacing as Leora and Rylan moved deeper. Shadows twisted between the trees, and strange noises echoed from all directions. Leora's small hands trembled as she followed him. She had survived before, but now the forest felt alive in a way that was almost threatening. The air was thick, humid, and carried a strange, metallic scent that made her stomach churn. She stayed close to Rylan, knowing he was the only reason she felt even a little safe. They reached a wide clearing and the ground shook beneath their feet. Leora froze. From the treeline, a massive creature emerged. It was enormous, larger than any predator they had faced before. Its skin was thick and armored, and its glowing eyes fixed on them with intelligence, not just hunger. The air vibrated with the sound of its roar. Leora's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anything so terrifying. The smaller beasts they had outrun before seemed harmless compared to this monster. Rylan stepped in front of her, his stance calm and steady. He assessed the creature carefully. "We can't outrun it," he said quietly. "We have to think. Pay attention to my moves and stay close." Leora nodded, though her heart was pounding. She realized the human did not panic. His mind was working faster than hers, planning, calculating. She had seen him survive smaller dangers before, but this was something different. The stakes were higher, and yet he remained calm. The creature took a step forward, its claws digging into the soft earth. It roared again, shaking the leaves above. Rylan grabbed a thick vine and swung it to create a distraction. The monster turned its head, growling in confusion. "Now," he shouted. Leora ran, following the path he had chosen. She tried to remember his instructions, keeping low, moving quietly, and not looking directly at the creature. Rylan had set up simple traps along the clearing, pits covered with branches, sharpened sticks hidden in the dirt. The creature fell into one of these traps, thrashing and roaring in anger. Leora watched, amazed at his ingenuity. Humans did not only fight with strength. They fought with intelligence, using tools, traps, and the environment to their advantage. She felt a rush of admiration. This human was small compared to the monster, yet he could control the situation with his mind. The giant beast recovered quickly and roared louder than before. Its massive tail lashed through the trees, sending branches flying. Leora ducked instinctively, her small body pressed against the ground. Rylan grabbed her hand. "Stay close. follow me and trust my lead." She did, running as he directed, zigzagging between trees and over roots. Each move was calculated, designed to tire the creature, confuse it, and keep them both safe. At one point, the monster lunged at Leora faster than she could react. Rylan pushed her out of the way, taking the hit himself. She gasped, horrified. He grunted but quickly recovered, rolling to his feet and using the creature's momentum against it. He guided it toward a narrow gorge. The monster was too large to pass through easily, and Rylan led it right into the trap he had prepared earlier. It fell with a deafening roar. Leora stared, amazed at his courage and cleverness. He risked himself to protect her, not out of obligation but by choice. After a tense few moments, the creature struggled and then collapsed, unable to follow them any further. Leora sank to the ground, trembling from exhaustion and relief. Rylan knelt beside her, checking to make sure she was unharmed. "You did well," he said softly. "I couldn't have done this without your help spotting paths and watching for danger." Leora shook her head. I couldn't have done it without you. You're amazing." Rylan smiled faintly. "We make a good team. That's what matters." For the first time, Leora realized humans were not just strong or clever, they were brave because they chose to face fear. They used intelligence, strategy, and careful observation to survive. And more than that, they risked themselves to protect others. She had never seen such selflessness in her life. Every alien she knew would have fled or fought only to survive, but this human had chosen to save her, even when the danger was overwhelming. Night fell fully and the jungle grew quiet. The glowing mushrooms and insects lit their path as they moved toward a safer area. Leora walked beside Rylan, her fear replaced by awe and admiration. She noticed the small details he pointed out, the faint tracks of smaller creatures, the way certain plants bent away from hidden dangers, and the paths the larger beasts avoided. She was learning, slowly, how to survive alongside him. Finally, they reached a small plateau overlooking a river. Leora sank to the ground, exhausted but alive. She looked at Rylan, seeing him not just as a human but as a guide, protector, and friend. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded, brushing dirt from his clothes. "You don't have to thank me. We survived together." She thought about that. Humans, she realized, had a way of thinking beyond themselves. They considered others, worked as a team, and faced impossible challenges with courage. As they sat in silence, watching the moonlight shimmer on the river below, Leora felt something new. She felt hope. She had been alone, small and fragile, but now she had someone who believed in her, who could protect her, and who taught her how to face danger with her mind as well as her instincts. She realized the jungle was still dangerous, but it no longer felt impossible. The human beside her, calm and steady in the face of terror, had shown her that survival was more than running or hiding. It was about courage, intelligence, and the choice to act when it mattered most. Leora knew she would never forget this lesson. The jungle had tested them both, but together they had overcome the greatest threat it could throw at them. And for the first time she believed that maybe, just maybe, they could survive anything that lay ahead. The first light of dawn spread across the jungle, painting the trees with soft gold. Leora stretched, feeling stiff and tired from the long night, but her heart felt lighter. The terror of the previous days had faded, replaced by a quiet sense of hope. Beside her, Rylan checked their surroundings as always, alert yet calm. Leora watched him, still amazed at how a human could remain so steady in the face of danger. She realized she had learned more in these past hours than in her entire life, about survival, courage, and trust. They began to move again, following a narrow path that led toward Leora's village. Her small hands brushed against familiar plants, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. She had survived the jungle before, but never like this. Never with someone beside her who understood danger, who thought quickly, and who risked himself to save her. Rylan glanced at her, noticing the small smile. "Feeling better?" he asked. Leora nodded. "Yes. I feel safer with you." He gave a small nod. "Good. That's the point. Safety comes from more than hiding. It comes from knowing how to act." As they moved closer to her village, the sounds of alien life began to fill the air. Soft whistles, the chatter of small creatures, and distant calls from her people. Leora's heart began to race, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had survived the jungle, but now she had to face her own people, who had always been wary of outsiders, especially humans. She felt a twinge of fear. Would they accept him? Would they trust him as she did? Rylan noticed her hesitation. "Don't worry," he said gently. "Just show them who you are. I'll follow your lead." Leora took a deep breath, feeling courage swell inside her. She led him through the outer edge of the village, careful to avoid drawing attention. Small figures peeked from behind trees and bushes watching them. Whispers traveled quickly. A human? Why is he here? Leora's small voice called out, It's okay. He saved me. He helped me survive. Slowly, curious villagers began to approach. Their expressions were a mix of caution and astonishment. They looked at Rylan, noticing his calm demeanor, his careful movements, and the way he had protected Leora without hesitation. One elder stepped forward, studying him closely. You risked your life for our child? He asked. Rylan nodded. Yes, because she deserved protection. Because it was the right choice. The elder's eyes widened slightly. It was unusual for an outsider to act without expectation, without personal gain. Leora's people had never seen such selflessness. Rylan stayed quiet as Leora spoke, telling them how he had saved her from the beasts, guided her through the jungle and helped her survive. The villagers listened, their initial suspicions slowly turning into awe. They began to see humans differently, not as strange, fragile creatures, but as beings capable of courage, intelligence, and empathy. Leora watched their reactions with quiet pride. This human had changed their perception with his actions alone. The elder finally spoke. You have our respect, he said to Rylan. Not many would risk themselves for others, especially in such danger. Rylan nodded politely. I only did what anyone should do. We help each other. That is what matters. Leora's heart swelled. The words were simple, but their meaning was profound. Humans, she realized, were special not because of size or strength alone, but because of the choices they made. They could face danger, think clearly, and act for the benefit of others. After the formal introductions, Leora led Rylan to her home. Her family embraced her, their relief obvious, and then turned to Rylan. At first they hesitated, but as they listened to her story they began to smile, nod, and finally welcome him. He had earned their trust, not through words but through courage and care. Leora realized that humans had a way of making their actions speak louder than any words. That evening, as the sky turned a deep purple, Leora and Rylan sat near a small fire. Leora watched the flames dance and thought about everything that had happened. She had faced monsters, survived the deadliest parts of the jungle, and learned from a human how to be brave, clever, and calm. She looked at Rylan and felt a deep sense of gratitude. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. He smiled. You don't have to. Seeing you safe is enough. For the first time, Leora felt the weight of her fear lift completely. She realized that humans could be trusted, that they could be more than just strangers, they could be allies, teachers, and friends. She thought about how much she had learned from him, how to observe danger, how to act with strategy, and how courage and kindness could exist together. The jungle had tested them both, but they had survived. And now she felt ready to face anything in the world because she knew she had someone to rely on, someone who would choose to protect her. The villagers began to relax, sharing stories and laughter around the fire. Leora saw her people begin to understand that humans were not only survivors, but also beings of intelligence and heart. She felt a quiet pride that she had been part of this moment, that she had been saved, guided, and taught by someone who truly cared. As the night grew quiet, Leora lay near Rylan, staring at the stars that shone brightly above the jungle. She thought about the beasts, the dangers, and the endless trials they had faced. But most of all, she thought about the human who had stepped forward, who had risked everything without hesitation. She realized that the universe was vast and dangerous, but with courage, cleverness, and trust, even the smallest and weakest could survive, and even thrive. For Leora this was more than survival. It was a new beginning. A beginning filled with hope, friendship, and the knowledge that humans could be more than legends, they could be heroes. And as she closed her eyes, she knew that her life had changed forever, because one human had chosen to step forward when it mattered most.